everybody. Hello. So I didn't announce this. It's White Line Fever Live. Welcome, everybody. The reason that we are having this impromptu meeting of minds is that these two fellows mentioned to me on social media a week ago when we did the little video about Mark Geyer and the 1996 I Know Where You Live case, that they actually had some memories that no one else had, and they actually were involved in their own ways. So I thought, why just have this conversation between the three of us and whoever follows us on Twitter? Why not have it for everybody and share these memories? And of course, it does also. This meeting is being recorded, and it also does help promote the video, which is sitting there on YouTube. So welcome to the show, and thanks. I know it's after the footy your time. Brad Walter and Tony Adams. Hello.
Hey, Steve. How are you, mate? Hey, Tony.
Good. Tony?
Yeah, guys, good to see you. It's been a while since we've been in the same room, so to speak. But,
yeah.
Great to catch up.
Possibly since the Mark Geyer judiciary hearing.
Yeah, thanks, MG. Thanks for bringing us together. So before we start talking about that, I'm trying to do stuff that's timeless because, if you talk about a footy game that's just finished, people care for about 2 hours and then they forget about it. But we will briefly mention it because 46-0 Souths over Brisbane. It's pretty shocking, isn't it, guys? What quickly, your thoughts?
Well, it's become the norm, hasn't it? Most weeks Brisbane are lucky to score a try or two, and most weeks the opposition score over 40. I'm just dirty because I tipped over 52 points. South let me down, so they're going to have to do better next week, South. But that just shows how badly the Broncos are going. They really have become an embarrassment. Last year they were a train wreck. Everyone thought that was rock bottom, but I don't know about you, Brad, but I just think they've gone even worse.
Yeah, I think they're trying to rebuild this year, but I don't think they know really what direction they're going in. So they're chopping and changing every week. So when things don't work, they haven't got any faith. They don't stick with it. They change their halves. They change their fullback. They just it's like every week they're starting all over again or starting the season all over again. I've never had I never felt this year that the Brisbane Broncos are trying to make the top 8 or trying to be a competitive force. It's just that they're trying to rebuild their team, and they've got some really good players and some really good talent in that team, but they've got a long way to go to work out, what their best team is and how they're going to become a premiership force again. It just seems miles away from, doesn't it? I can't believe how quickly they've fallen away.
Yeah, now, and that's it. The thing you pointed out is an important thing to look at. They do have talented players there. You look at the Bulldogs, who are in a similar situation, but they try every week, and they're just a bunch of basically young battlers with one or two experienced players. But some of those guys in the Broncos team, the likes of Payne Haas, Xavier Coates, they're real star players. They're origin players, and yet they're getting beat by 30, 40 points every week. And, I just can't understand it. It's, you've really got to watch it. They're too bad to believe, really.
I just think they're playing with no confidence. I think they just got no confidence, and I'm not sure how they turn it around, but they look like they're second guessing themselves. They're really unsure of themselves. As I said, the team keeps changing every week. There's probably no direction, long-term direction. And so you've got really good players who are suddenly, second guessing themselves and not playing with any real confidence, and probably not showing any confidence in their teammates around them as well.
Now, guys, the reason we're here, right, is because we did a little mini doco a couple of weeks back on Mark Geyer going before the judiciary. Charge was telling Touch Judge Martin Weeks, I Know Where You Live, and he got 6 weeks, and it went for 2 nights, and had Michael Bolt on, who was on the judiciary that night, and Curtis and I, we got some old clips from MG off the radio, and it was a bit of fun, and took probably a bit longer to edit than I would have liked. But since then, you guys just came out with your own stories of that hearing. So for those who haven't watched or listened, it's on if you're listening, you can listen to it. If you're watching, you can watch it wherever you're watching or listening now. It's available. Just look up WLF Milestones. But but you guys had your own recollections of there was a game in Canberra between Perth and the Raiders at the Wacker, and initially we didn't know what had been said, and then it came out what had been said, and Tony, you played a little bit of a role before the hearing, and Brad, you covered the hearing. Who comes into this story first? I suspect it was you, Tony, after the game. What do you remember?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was in Perth, wasn't it, Brad?
It was, yeah. Can I just butt in, Steve? I think I probably can give you sort of a bit of more of a sequence to it. I think, so for example, the game was in Perth, Raiders v the Reds over in Perth. Back then, games weren't covered. Not every game was covered like it is now. And so I was working at AAP, and the guy that was supposed to be covering the rugby league, he was also a huge Fremantle Dockers fan, and they were playing that weekend in a big game. And so he went to the Fremantle Dockers and he covered the Perth game basically by phone. And so the AAP report that we had, it didn't have any mention of the incidents and the dramas with Mark Guy being sin bin, put on a report, etc. And somebody rang me up involved with the Raiders who said, I can't believe that, your match report and it makes no mention of the drama that occurred. And they told me what had happened, and I confirmed that, and we had a story that ran around around those incidents. And then there was the judiciary hearing, or Mark Guy, MG, obviously was cited and charged, I think, with 5 offences from memory. And then on the day of the hearing, which I think would have been a Monday night back then, I'm guessing, and it was done via video link. But Tony, then you had the afternoon papers. So in the afternoon Telegraph, Tony's got the exclusive story with MG detailing, I suppose, or defending himself and against the charges, which he was later to face at a judiciary tribunal hearing that night. And I don't know, Tony, maybe you want to jump in and talk about, how you spoke to MG on the eve of that hearing?
Yeah, well, I remember the big headline I got, because it was just completely unique, was "I know where you live," which is what MG said to Martin Weeks, and that was the line I was able to get, and of course I didn't get off MG because he didn't want to talk about that. I got off someone else before I rang MG, and we had a long chat, and he he certainly confirmed that he lost it, and that he said something to Martin Weeks. I still believe, and I said, well, I guess we've got to come back to this at the end, but I think he said it in jest. I mean, we know what sort of fellow MG is better these days because he's been in the media so much. Back then he was considered a bit of a lunatic on the field, a loose cannon. And I think when the judiciary was presented with this fact that, he allegedly said, "I know where you live," they took it very seriously. That was the Monday night. Peter Falingos covered the hearing for us, the late, great Peter Falingos. And the first I knew of all the drama was he called me after the hearing and said, "You've got to come in here tomorrow night for part 2 of this hearing." And I had no idea what was going on. And my first thought, I'll never forget, was Tuesday night's my touch footy night. I don't want to miss my touch footy game. And I tried my hardest to get out of it, but he just said, "Look, he's called your credibility in the question. He reckons you rang him up and you hung up on him after he hung up on you after 10 seconds. And he said something like, "Oh, it's Sydney media. You can't believe anything they say." So it was a bit of a slap in the face from MG, who ironically now is a very good mate of mine. And even back then we got on pretty well, but I think he, was advised pretty poorly by the Reds management just to deny. So anyway, on the next night, a very, very nervous young reporter turned up at the judiciary, and it was all done by video link. And the judiciary chairman, I can't remember his name, Brad.
Alan Sullivan.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Alan Sullivan.
The first thing he did was ask me for my notes, and that was a bit embarrassing because I actually put my notes on the screen, and my brother's a doctor, and doctors are renowned for bad handwriting. Well, his handwriting's bad, mine's even worse. So my horrible looking scrawl was up on the screen. I didn't know shorthand. I sort of had my own version of shorthand, but my notes were there for all to see, and basically there was a lot of giggling on both sides of the continent. You know, the Perth contingent laughed when they saw my notes, and so did the people in the room in Sydney. But the thing that really hung MG, so to speak, was we got a record of the telephone conversation, and according to MG, it lasted 10 seconds. And the record of the call was that it went for about 12 minutes. So, basically it was my word against his, but the fact we spoke for 12 minutes and he told the judiciary the previous night that, he basically hung up in my ear, that certainly was in my favour. And they found him guilty, but my last words to him were that, look, go easy on him, because I honestly believe he does know Martin Weeks. They sort of clashed a few times in the past, but he's got a quirky sense of humour, and I think it was just a basically set in jest. It's not like he was going to go around there and bash the bloke, but I don't think they listened, because I think he got quite a few weeks.
I think Steve and Tony, just to put it in context. So I was at the judiciary hearing on both nights, and just so that if people aren't sure, then just to background this. So I think MG, he was on 4 or 5 charges which related to like abusing a match official, threatening a match official. I know he threw a water bottle. It was alleged to have thrown a water bottle from the bench at a touch judge, and just a number of sort of incidents like that. And like, as Tony said, knowing MG now, he's a great character of the game, and even back then he was a great character of the game. One of the charge that Tony's referred to is that he said to Martin Weeks, who was an in-goal touch judge. So this is back in the days of before video referees. And remember, like, none of us have seen that game because it wasn't broadcast, right? Yeah. So we're just going off like judiciary reports and reports from match officials and other people, ground managers, etc. Right, that were and evidence at the judiciary. But like, anyway, one of the charges was that MG's Mark Geyer said to Martin Weeks, who was an in-goal touch judge at the time, "I know where you live," and MG, what he said in evidence at the judiciary hearing, and look, I believe him, is that he was saying to Martin Weeks, who lived in Perth, right, that you live in Perth, you're from West Australia, you should be supporting us, you should be on our side, you're a local in-goal touch judge or match official, you should be on our side because you're from Perth and we're from Perth. And that was the evidence that MG gave, and I believe that he wasn't. I don't believe
Michael Bolt does not. Michael Bolt does not agree with you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, it sounds like a threat, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I know where you live, which is true. Like, I think he did, and like I do remember MG saying, "But I do know where he lives." You know.
Yeah. Well, they got him. They got him on Triple M with Matty Johns, and he said. And they said, "So, Martin, after all these years, do you still live in Perth?" And he goes, "Yeah, I still do." And MG goes, "Where exactly?"
Yeah, I know. Anyway, it was a really emotive hearing. It went for a long time, obviously, because there were a lot of charges, and he was being grilled. It was via video link, and then the thing was that after, like, an MG denied all that, basically denied everything. As Tony said, he was probably poorly advised and advised to deny when it clearly a lot of these things had occurred. And so pretty much at the end of all the evidence that was given, Alan Sullivan, who was the chairman of the judiciary, then read from the back page of the Afternoon Telegraph and said, "Well, you've denied all this, and yet in the Telegraph you're quoted as basically admitting it," and he read to it, and that's when MG denied that he'd spoken to Tony, which then Peter Falingos, the late great Peter Falingos, then jumped in Tony's to defend Tony's I suppose reputation or integrity, and said, well, I'll get Tony Adams down here tomorrow. We'll get the phone records from News Corp to prove that Tony did speak to Mark at length, blah, 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 for the story. And then that's what occurred. So I've never been to a judiciary hearing that's run for 2 days, but then the second day we're all back. And, hey, guess what? There were more people at the judiciary hearing on the second day, and it was bigger and, I suppose, better than the previous day. And, yes, Tony was a star witness, came in and gave his evidence. And, and I think from memory, it didn't end well, unfortunately, for MG. As you said, he got a hefty suspension, even though probably a lot of us had some sympathy for him, or could probably accept that maybe it wasn't as menacing as how it was portrayed. But there was a litany of incidents from that match, and MG also had a pretty long judiciary record as well. So it was he was never going to get the benefit of the doubt. And I'm pretty sure I know that's also the incident where, because they were over in Perth, I think they were at Birdswood Casino from memory, on a video conference, and the screen had gone off for them, and they thought they couldn't see us anymore, but we were in Sydney and we could see them. They didn't realise that we could see them, and MG stuck the fingers up at the screen, and Alan Sullivan called him back and gave him a real dressing down, in terms of his, I suppose, his attitude towards the judiciary, and advised him that he could receive an even longer suspension from that. So, and Mark was really upset and really emotional to have been found guilty of all those charges and to have received a really long suspension like he did.
Yeah, it was amazing. And for the youngsters watching, hopefully there's one or two. The way we used to cover the judiciary and how colourful it used to be compared to now, it's very, very dry. And Alan Sullivan would have these sermons from the mountain. Before him, Jim Comans and a couple of other guys, and he said, "Oh, you've just displayed the indiscipline that we found you guilty of." When he did that. But amazing times, guys. And I can't believe Chippy actually spoke up and. You were supposed to be an observer on the first night, and he's gone, "I won't hear that said about my workmate." And that was like the night another, Bob Fulton said, "Are you calling my son a liar?" When I think Scott Fulton was accused.
Scott, yeah.
Yeah, was accused of biting. Was it biting? It was biting, I think, yeah. And he sat at the back, and no one else was there. I was the only one there, I remember, because people used to just come along for the main case. They wouldn't come along for the reserve graders or stuff. But I just saw the name Fulton on the thing, and I thought it was worth going in and covering.
I think I said that MG was involved in probably 2 of the top 5 judiciary cases I ever covered.
Next year, which features in the book. And guys, I'm going to let you go in a minute, but and thank you for joining us. That was awesome. Great to tell people about that. And I guess if we wait too long, we wait another sort of 30 years and we don't talk about this, it might be lost forever. So hopefully 30, 40, 50 years. But guys, I haven't spoken to you for the book yet, and I want to get around to doing it. But the NRL turns 25 next year, and they're not going to celebrate it, I guess, because the birth of the NRL was the temporary death of Souths, among many other things. Not something they want to remind people of. But the thing that I've found, just pulling quotes together just in the last 24 hours for the last couple of chapters, is people just can't agree. Like the 3 main questions were, what was it all about? Who won? And what did we learn from it? And even 25 years later, having interviewed close to 100 people, I can't get consensus on any of those questions. People still have completely different views about...
You haven't said the 2 words, though, we're talking about Super League.
Yeah.
For those who might not know.
Super League, the split season in 97. So when the NRL turns 25 next year, what will it mean? And then I'll let you go. What does it mean?
Yeah, it's a
very good question. Like to be honest, the NRL was born out of the Super League war, wasn't it? And the game's never been the same since. It's far more professional than what it was then. It feels like a much more professional organisation than what we had. But exactly what does it mean? Is the NRL just and now we have the ARLC? Is the ARLC just a continuation of the Australian Rugby League that ran the game previously, or I really don't know. That's a great question that I think needs a lot more time to examine it. And I think 25 years on, it would be really good to reflect on. I suppose, what does the NRL? Yeah, what does it mean? What does it stand for? How has it evolved over that period of time? But yeah, at the end of the day, it was just a thrown together peace deal, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was just a solution to a split in the game, and it was just trying to get the game back together as best as it can, and it's just evolved over those 25 years.
Yeah. Tony, I spoke to Jeff Carr on one side, says, geez, the game was flying, and Paul Kynes, the game would have been better off without the war. And then you got some players who obviously earned a lot of money out of it, and also like guys like Tom Mockridge, who I interviewed, who say that the game, it needed a kick up the bum, that it got stagnant, and it needed the war to progress to where it is now. Two completely incompatible views of something that happened 25 years ago. People can't agree. What do you think, Tony?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think people, it's all about self-interest, isn't it? Like Super League was driven by people who felt the game needed a change, but they were also very well compensated for their views. And, then, of course, we had going back to the ARL, and they had to bump up salaries of all their players and staff. But to me, looking back 25 years, the saddest thing probably is that we had 20 teams back then. And we had a truly national competition. We had MG's Perth Reds, we had Adelaide, we had the South Queensland Crushers, and we had two teams in Newcastle. And those four teams all died, and I think the game's the poorer for it.
Yeah, well, that's a great way to finish. We don't want to give so many wise answers that no one buys my book. So
can I just go off topic though?
Yep.
Tony's just reminded me of something, which was around just the I suppose when we went to the 20-team competition, when those new teams were coming in, and you'd remember this, Tony, and I'm sure you were there too, Steve, but remember we played a touch game against the Perth Reds before they came into the competition? Imagine doing that now. Imagine the new Brisbane team playing a game of touch against a bunch of journos. I remember playing against MG, and I'm sure you do too, Tony, but that was...
Well, I tell you what, I remember it. He picked me up and had me in a position to spear tackle me. And I saw my life flash before my eyes, but then he very gently put me down on the ground. So it's one moment of my touch football career I'll never forget.
Hey, the best thing about doing the book has been like talking to, living over here now, and so it's given me an excuse to talk to people, that I haven't seen in a long time. And normally, if I was interviewing you guys for the book, it'd just be over the phone, and I wouldn't have the opportunity to speak to you like this. So it's been awesome just to see you both and to hear your voices. And thanks, everybody. That was awesome. Thank you, everybody. There's a bunch of show links which will tell you how you can support the show, and the book will be out October 4. So, and I want to talk to you both individually before I finish doing interviews. I'm up to 86 interviews. I want to get to 100. So maybe you guys could be 99 and 100. Awesome. Thanks, everybody. I'll stop streaming and I'll stop recording. That's awesome, guys. That was really good.
Cool. Yeah.
I only went the first night. So I didn't remember Tony testifying. So
okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's just fun times. I don't know, like it's a totally different game now, isn't it? Can you imagine something like that these days?
Fuck, like if it happened, no one would be there to cover it.
Yeah.
That's a really sad thing, like, so there'll be a judiciary hearing now, unless it's a massive case. There's the possibility there could be no one at the hearing.
Yeah. it's fucked. But anyway, hey guys, it's late at night for you, so thanks very much for that. Both of you have a great weekend, and stay in touch. Might see you.
Will do.
Might see you at the World Cup.
How are you enjoying it over there? It's going well?
Mate, yeah. There's lots of, mate, I'm doing a lot of things, and as usual, there's only a couple that are bringing in money, but there's more and more of them bringing in money, and it's just a different way of thinking, Tony. Like you just do that one thing your whole life, and you just know how to do that one thing, and it's kind of it's.
Yeah. I mean, I've been doing the same thing for 40 years, and it does get a bit monotonous at times, and you think, what the hell have I done with my life?
Yeah, mate. We're actually like looking at putting on like a Magic Week off the record, a Magic Weekend type thing week before the World Cup. So I'm like talking about suddenly being like Colin Love World Sevens territory, with three other blokes, and so there's just lots of it's easy you lose a bit of confidence sometimes because you just don't know the landscape you're in anymore. You're in this landscape where you knew how everything worked and who everyone was, and suddenly you're in a landscape where you're starting at the bottom where people don't return your emails or don't return your calls. So it's kind of tough, but it's fun as well when something comes off. So anyway,
how's it going, Tony? With Night or Whitewater Sport?
Mate, it's good. It's a lot less pressure than League Week. They expect a lot less from me, but they also pay me a lot less. So I think sort of semi-retirement. And no, they're good. Like League Week could get on him and say, ring Jonathan Thurston now and get him to comment on this. We need it for the cover in the next half hour, and Nine I just don't hear from. If I file one story a week, they're happy. If I file 4 stories a week, they're happy. So they're very good in that sense. They sort of don't put much pressure on me.
But what do you prefer? Like I'm always torn between like, when people aren't demanding stuff from me, it's like good. You think it's good, and then you think, oh fuck, they don't care, and then sometimes you want them to be going, come on, there's a big story, let's fucking get it,
There's a bit of that, but I mean, I've just got to push myself. Like if I haven't written a story for 2-3 days, I start getting itchy and thinking, shit, do they think I'm bludging? Because as you know, I mean, one of the things I've always found with journalism, you can make 50 phone calls and get nothing, and then you bump into a bloke in Coles and he'll tell you, oh, geez, did you hear about so-and-so doing so-and-so with so-and-so? You think, shit, that's a good story. The end result is not necessarily a reflection of the amount of work you put in.
Yeah, that's right. And you can put in
like to put yourself in, mate. You still have to put yourself in position. Like if you I've stopped going to games, So
yeah, me too. I haven't been to a game in 2 years. They don't even send me a press pass anymore.
Yeah.
I think games are massively overrated, and what you get out of games is like so the NRL, the clubs, they've all got things asked about, right? Because hardly anyone goes to games anymore. All the press conferences are live stream. You're in the press conference asking the questions. Like the coaches will say, fuck, there's only 2 journos here or 3 journos here, right? So you're in there asking the questions, and before you've got out of the room, someone at Fox Sports has fucking transcribed it all and put it online.
Yeah, right? Made it a story. Yeah.
And made it a story, right? And you're not even there. You haven't even had the chance to do it. They're not there, right? And then you go to the sheds and you stand around for fucking ever, and half the time blokes don't want to talk to you, or clubs don't want you to talk to them, and you just think, you walk out of there and you think, if I got something, quite often it's I'm just writing a story for the fucking sake of it, because I made the effort to come here. I feel like I need to go, bang, I spoke to some bloke and I've written a story. But at the end of the day, who gives a fuck? Because it all gets lost in the, we just have that cycle of games on the weekend. And unless it's something really good, which is like 1 in 100, you're just doing it for the fucking sake of basically being able to say, I went to the game and I spoke to a bloke.
Yeah.
It's very rarely. The last time I got something decent, and it even blew me away was when James Tedesco had a crack at Chad Townsend, and Chad Townsend went on social media and trying to defend himself. It was over Chad Townsend, like trying to intimidate Sam Walker in his first or second NRL game.
Yeah. Well, I went to probably 2 years ago now a Roosters training session, and just wrote up a really boring, AAP style Jake Friend story saying, we've got to lift this week, and play better after we lost last week, and blah blah blah. And my editor rang me up and said, "What'd you write that for?" I said, "Well, I was there. I spoke to him. I thought I may as well file something." He said, "Don't do that." He said, "We got blokes in here who transcribe shit off these things, and we got AAP." So I said, "Okay." He said, "You're for special, offbeat, quirky, different stories. So fine by me."
But the problem is, then there's so few people doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
Just the what I mean. So it ends up being, AAP and NRL.com covering a game in Gosford or something, and then everyone else is just following off the TV.
Fox Sports have become like the Mail Online, haven't they? They just beat everyone up, and
Well, that's
they'll often take my stories and probably Brad's stories, and they credit us, so you can't bag them.
Everyone used to blow up about them, no attribution. So now they just fucking rip everything off and just attribute it.
Yeah, exactly. But Wide World of Sports does the same. So
yeah.
All right, look, I've got to fly, guys, but really good to catch up. We should do this regularly.
One sec, Crossy. Yeah, that's awesome, mate. It's just great to speak to you both. Awesome.
Yeah, good to see you.
Have a good night, and we'll see you soon.
All righty.
Bye.
Soon.
See you, Tony.
Bye.
See ya.